Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Let's look at another Dave Ramsey clip and see if he's redeemed himself from the last time I roasted him.
So my parents bought their first home in 1963 for $12,230.
Ooh.
Okay, that house today would be what, $400K, right?
Well, in 1963, $12,320 would be $124,941 today. The average price of a house in America right now is closer to that $400,000 mark that Ramsey is talking about, which it's actually $495,000. I know Ramsey is saying that his parents bought an average house back in the day, but really they got an amazing deal considering what the average price is today. I mean, let's see how his parents handled getting that amazing deal on a house.
And they don't live in that house anymore. But I mean, that house today, that's what it would sell for. I know right where it is. It's just over the hill over here. And I still live in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 1963. You know what my grandparents said? How can any young people buy a house for $12,000 on a 30-year? You're going to pay on it till you die. It's awful. And you know what the interest rate was? It was 4.5%. Oh, God. That's what my grandparents said.
Dave, this was supposed to be my rant.
But I mean, that's all that's happening right now, right?
Okay, well, let's see if our circumstances are similar. In 1963, the median income of all families was $6,200. Now remember, this is probably coming from just a single income. It was just the guy working. In 1963, the average cost of a home was $19,300. And I've seen, like in 1960, it was much lower. So his parents probably bought a home $6,000 cheaper than the average. They got a good deal. Their home cost roughly 2 times what the median income was at the time. Well, what is it today? The median family income as of 2022 is $74,580. I couldn't find anything on what it was last year, but I'm sure it hasn't risen too much. And again, the cost of a house is now $495,000. So that's like 6.6 times what the median income is. And remember, theirs was 2. So whether Ramsey likes it or not, most people have been priced out of the market.
That's right.
I mean, and so I'm looking at these prices, and I'm like my grandparents, right? I'm like, God, this is ridiculous.
You're
How
exactly
can any
right.
of these young people buy a house? Bless your heart. And the young people are looking at it. And of course, social media gives you an inordinate ability to bitch and whine. And
All
so
day
you people,
long.
some of you people whine and wallow in the victim stuff from now on. Yeah, you boomers bought your house with 2 buckets of strawberries. Y'all don't know what's going on. And it's like, oh, God, your whining is unbelievable.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. But I understand because it's scary.
I do
you
understand.
feel trapped.
And you've never experienced that up until this
Feel
point.
trapped. But my point is, it's always been that way.
That's just a lie. It's just a straight up lie. Why are they so committed to these lies that can be exposed with one little Google search? Houses were not always this expensive, and you are not crazy for thinking that.
Exactly. It's always been that way, and it just depends on when it hits you.
prices are worse than they've been since 1980. Yep, that's true.
Why would he say that in the Kermit the Frog voice? Why would he mock what is clearly the most important piece of information about this issue?
But every generation has their version of that.
So here, I was doing an interview with an NPR lady yesterday, doing a thing on real estate. It's going to come out later, I guess, whenever the NPR does her thing.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, so what do people do? What do they do? Because wages, it's systemically broken. What do they do? And I said, well, there's always been a time and there's always been a place where someone lived in a neighborhood they could not afford.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I started doing the show 35 years ago, you could not live in Los Angeles or Manhattan downtown unless you made X number of dollars.
That's right. That's
you can't
right.
afford it. Well, it's not fair. I don't care.
It just
I'm not
isn't-
trying,
it is what
it's
it
not a
is.
fair. The fair is where the tilt-a-whirl and the cotton candy is. There's not a fair, okay? It's a math thing.
Yeah.
And so you can't afford to live in Los Angeles today or San Diego today or certainly in San Jose or San Francisco
But Dave,
today,
some people
if you
feel
make
like they
$50,000 a year.
Some people feel like they can't live in whatever the suburb is of their normal sized city, like in just a normal.
Well, that might be true, but they might be outside the suburb then.
You see how his hypothetical situation keeps getting more and more ridiculous? Yes, downtown LA and Manhattan are very expensive places to live, but that's not why everybody is whining. They're whining because crack houses in the worst neighborhoods are going for $200,000 to $300,000. That is what is available. And so he says, yeah, well, maybe the suburbs are out too.
Because every city, unless it's contiguous to another city or contiguous to a mountain or water, has what we call in urban growth ring theory. You drop a pebble in the center of the city, and every ring that goes out gets cheaper, unless it bumps into a view of water or a view on a mountain, or something else that drives the price artificially.
Sure.
Okay, but generally speaking, you drop a pebble in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. You know, you go 30 miles out, you got one price point. You go 100 miles out, you got a completely different price point. And that's true around America. Okay, it's true in Columbus, Ohio. It's true in Austin, Texas. It's true in Dallas, Texas, except you run over there into Fort Worth because they're beside each other. But other than that, you're going to get a ring going out of that area.
What jobs are available 100 miles away from Nashville out in the middle of nowhere? I mean, this is his advice to millions of people. Not one person he knows. He's advising millions to move out to the middle of nowhere where there are no good jobs and buy a cheaper house. And now he's going to commit the ultimate boomer sin here. The only talking point they ever have.
And the further, years ago, 25 years ago, when I started going to Dallas, 30 years ago, I started going to Dallas, McKinney was an exit. And now it's a metroplex, right?
Yeah.
North Dallas, right? North Dallas. And so, but
it's the same thing here with Spring Hill. It
exactly.
used to be nothing.
Spring Hill was a wide spot in the road, and now it's a legitimate bedroom community. And you should have bought there 20 years ago. No, you should have bought there 40 years ago.
Right.
No, you should have bought there 20 months ago, because it's always gone up everywhere.
Housing prices just always go up, and so you're a sucker if you don't buy now. I went over this exact argument in my video on Jeff Thompson, so I won't rehash all those points here, but go check out that video because I show how stupid and how short-sighted this line of thinking is.
Now, here's the truth. The truth is it is very hard to buy a house right now, and it shook some people up, and I am sympathetic to that. I'm not sympathetic to victimhood.
Right.
And you're whining about it, but I'm sympathetic to the fear.
I agree with that.
And the sense of being stuck.
And that was the intent of my post. The intent was to say, listen, you're right. It's not the same. And like John Deloney would say, you have to grieve that. Grieve what was and grieve what won't be anytime soon. And then
decide
take action.
Decide how you're going to live.
Yeah, decide how you're going to live.
Because you don't get to yell and scream and they change prices because of your whining. Never once has a real estate price been changed because of people's whining.
And that's what people are saying. Well, what do you want us to do, Jay? Just sit back and accept it? And I'm like...
No, what I want you to do is quit yelling at the wind and adjust your sails.
That's good.
Don't yelling at the wind doesn't do anything. Adjust your sails. And so you need to decide, maybe I used to think I could live in this city making this much money. So I've got to adjust my income with my career choices.
And by the way, that may be very uncomfortable.
Or I've got to leave this area.
Another uncomfortable thing.
I can't afford to live in San Francisco.
Yes.
I can't afford to live in whatever.
Yeah.
I may have to live 100 miles out of a city instead of 30 miles out of a city.
Very true.
I want to own a home. But your income has to go up in order to buy more expensive things. It's a math thing. You don't get to whine about that and fix it. There's not a systemic thing that's broken. It's a broken brain. Adjust your sails. The wind moved.
All right, story time. A long time ago, in a different world, when I was a young guy in my early 20s and I was desperate, I was sucked in by the self-help world. And I bought a ton of the books, and I subscribed to all of the motivational channels, and I listened to all the self-help gurus. And I'll never forget this one guy named Jim Rohn. Now, Jim was an Herbalife salesman. And Herbalife is basically pyramid scheme adjacent. And he gave this speech about his success story and how he was in debt and he was failing to be as successful as he wanted to be. And then he met this man who would become his mentor and show him how to get rich. And the first thing that the guy told him is, you need to write down all the things that are holding you back in life. And so he got on it and he wrote down stuff like how his wife wasn't supportive in certain areas and how Jimmy Carter was president and how the economy wasn't great. And on it went. And then he gave the mentor the list, and his mentor looked at it and he said, well, buddy, you're missing the most important reason of all, yourself. And through all self-help books, this is a common theme. Abandon the victim mentality and push through the adversity. Grab yourself by the bootstraps and pull yourself up. All those reasons you give about why you can't make it are just excuses that the weak and wimpy give. And weak and wimpy people don't make it to the top, do they? There's doers and there's don'ters. And what are you? Are you going to be a doer? Hell yeah, I'm going to be a doer. But what if there are reasons other than yourself that keep you and others like you from success? What if there's an agenda from elites who want you to own nothing and be happy about it? What if you can't get a better job because you're white and all the jobs went to minorities because the system hates you? What if you got a perfect score on the SAT and did everything you should have in high school to be the most desirable applicant to the Ivy League schools, but you don't get in because you're a white male? What if all the what ifs are actually valid? America is not what it was. The American dream is largely dead. And what's left is going to be a decline in the standard of living. And no amount of self-help rhetoric is going to change that. But Dave is a product of the generation that saw massive growth. And it seems impossible for any of them to acknowledge that we are in a decline. His parents never had to decide whether any given major city in the U.S. was prohibitively expensive for them to live in. Sure, were there neighborhoods? Yeah. But were the whole town? No, you can move to any city you want. And so did Dave. He could move to any city he wants. They could have lived wherever. Historically, every generation has been doing better than the last, but that trend has ended now. And that's why people are upset. That's why people are whining. And his advice is to suck it up and live with less. And instead of acknowledging that, he gaslights people into thinking that they are the problem. It's not systemic, it's you. It's your fault for not making 4 times as much as you currently are in order to have the same purchasing power as your grandparents did. It's not the system's fault for creating a housing market that quadruples in value every 20 years. It's actually your fault for not adjusting your sales and keeping up with that market. And he says every generation has had this struggle, even though we can see as plain as day that they did not. The boomer is incapable of understanding how inflation works, and as such, they come off as cold, calloused, and a bunch of entitled assholes who have to pretend like they had it just as bad economically as we do. The only difference is they dug deep and they really grinded it out, and they had all the intestinal fortitude that we don't, because we're all a bunch of pussies who were given participation trophies, and that's why we can't buy a house. My girlfriend works as a receptionist. And, her work is located in a fancy suburb, so she drives there. And we would love to live there, but it's just too expensive. She's always friendly to the patients who come in, and she has great relationships with them. But there's this one guy she talks to, and, one day she had said to him that we just can't afford to get a house there, as much as we'd like to. And then a month later, she had bought this keyboard and mouse set for $30 off Amazon for her setup at work. And she was showing this guy, and his wife was there. She was showing them both how cute her keyboard and mouse were. And as he turned away, he said, well, that's why you can't afford to live here. And my girlfriend was so taken aback, like, excuse me? And she asked him, what'd you say? What was that? And he said it again. And she's like, because I spent $30 on a keyboard and mouse, that's why I can't afford a house here? It has nothing to do with the fact that house payment here would be more than I even make in a month? Are you serious? And the answer is yes, they are serious. They are seriously delusional people, and the day of the pillow cannot come fast enough for them. They will warn about the dangers of communism, okay? You can't have communism. Well, why is that? Because it has ruined countries, and that people would flee for better opportunities because in their country they had none. But then it never occurs to them that here in our country, where it's run almost exclusively by leftists with fake money and retarded economic policies, that there could ever be similar circumstances where our economy would be bad enough for people to start whining about it here. No, no, no. You don't get to whine about the decline. You see, when they were young, they made $3 an hour. And how much do you make? Well, you make $15 an hour. Well, what are you whining about? It must just be a brain problem. Not a system problem. You're just retarded. That's the message. That's all they have for you. They ruined the system, and then that's their message. Just quit whining. It is so infuriating to hear over and over, and they really do think that they have the truth. Anyways, I'm going to stop the rant here because I could keep going, because my hatred for the boomers and just how out of touch they are, I could just rant about it forever. So, if you like this video and type of content I'm making, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing to the channel. I'm very close to 1,000. I'd really like to hit it. Hit that subscribe button. Quit not doing it. Subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.